The Birail 3 Plus tool is very similar to the other two Birail tools that we've already discussed. The only primary difference here is that it allows you to use just as many profile curves as you like. Now, if I were to go under Edit NURBS, and, not Edit NURBS, Surfaces, excuse me, and come down to Birail and open up the Birail 3 Plus tool, open up the options box, then you see some very common settings that we've already taken a look at. We have transform control, proportional, which of course is going to control how the each curve, each profile is going to change as the rail changes, which we will look at separately. We can control continuity for the first profile or the last profile if we're using surfaces for those, and we can choose to rebuild the first, last profile, the first rail or second rail. Of course, we can control our output geometry and exit on completion or auto completion, stuff that we've really already seen for the most part. But let's take a look at this tool and see how it behaves uniquely among the Birail commands. I'll make a few profiles here. We'll start off with, let's see, we'll make one that's kind of like the letter M, so it'll dip down really low, like so. And let's make another one that is a little bit wider. And this is just going to dome straight up over. In fact, let me make sure that everything kind of grid snaps. Take just a second and I'll grid snap these guys down and down like so. And let's grab the tool again and I'll grid snap here as well. So we'll just kind of go straight up and over and back down. So it's a very simple one. And whoops, didn't really mean to do that. And then let's grab the tool again. And this time we'll grid snap again. And this one we'll make really wavy. Like so. And we'll put this one at the far end, we'll put this one in the middle, and we'll put this one down here. Now, as a rule of thumb, I personally, when I'm working like this, I will prefer to try to match up my spans by rebuilding, but just for this example, we won't worry about that. Now let me grab my EP curve tool, and I'll curve snap, curve snap, curve snap, so I'm creating one rail here. And let's curve snap, curve snap, curve snap, another rail here as well. And now notice this, if I start adjusting the shape, I'm going to pull away, I'm going to break that connection. So what I usually do is I'll get things as close as I can, and then I'll just go ahead and re-snap my profile curves at the very end just to be sure that I got everything. So get it close, grab your profile curve. Really, I think we'll only need to worry about the middle one, and we can snap that into place. I'm just curve snapping, mind you. And then curve snapping here as well. And now we can go and get the Birail 3 Plus tool. And if I close out my options down here so that we can see our direction, it says select any number of profile curves. So we'll grab this, then this, and this. And selection order is going to be important. And then let's go ahead and press Enter, because that's what it's asking for next. Now you grab your two rails, and voila. It says failed to complete the surface. So whenever this happens, your first move should be to go ahead and check your snapping. So let's make sure that everybody is indeed snapped to the curve. And we'll double check over here. Oh, looks like he was off, so as soon as I get him snapped, everything works out just fine. Didn't mean to nudge him. Looks like I did. There we go. F8. There we go. Now I'm going to grab this surface, and let's boost up its NURB surface display. So I'll go under Curve, Precision, and Shaded. We'll set that up to about 24. So it's nice and smooth, and you can see how we're transitioning from our original shape over to our middle shape, and then finally to our end shape. You can also see that the the edit points along the curve, our isoparms, are, a little bit unpredictable because we are going from so few points to so many points to so few again. So this is where rebuilding is going to come in handy, but this is kind of an impractical example. For the most part, you won't find yourself creating Birails of this nature. I just did this as sort of an example. So let's do another example instead. Let's start with the EP curve, and I'll grid snap. So in fact, hang on. You guys have already seen rebuilding, so I'm not going to really stress that too much. What I would like to do is show you a Birail between two surfaces. So let's go ahead and grab a surface, and we'll scale this out. And I guess some more patches would be kind of nice. So let's go over to our channel box. I'll set this to 3x3. And I'll do something similar to what I did for the example that we used for Birail 2, which was something I think kind of like so. So there's one surface, very similar. And then let's go ahead, let's go back to object mode. And let's duplicate this. And what I'll do is I'll duplicate it here, and I'll put it kind of off to the side. So what I'd like to do is make a transitional surface that will go from here to here, following a pair of rails. Now, when I'm doing this in the so-called real world, in most cases what I'll do is I'll start off by creating my rails so that I can define the shape that I'd like to follow to go from one point to the other. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll start off with curve point and curve point, and then we can use curve point and curve point like so. And now we can make some adjustments to these, like, actually, let me start off by rebuilding them. That's usually my mode of operation here. So edit curves, and let's see. Let's rebuild the curves to 4 spans would be okay. Let's try 6 spans, like so. Now I'm going to select each of these curves, and let's go ahead and project tangency. Now it's tangency in the wrong direction, so let me just undo that, and I'll change my settings from U to V. So that's keeping tangency there. Let's do the same thing here. Let's do the same thing here. And the same thing here. And now let's just delete out all our history. Now I can grab control vertices here and here. And shape things around. Have a little bit of fun. Could even, if you want to, we don't have to keep everything on this plane. We could roll everything upward. And let's go ahead and make a gap so that we can see how that proportional and non-proportional adjustment is going to work. Now, let's say we don't want to keep this same shape all throughout. We want to have some sort of a different shape as we bridge in between. So what you can do is let's just create a nice curve with our CV curve tool that illustrates what we want this to look like. Maybe we want it to dip down in the middle and then come over here like so. Now we can slide this generally into position. We do want it to actually touch our paths, or our rails in this case. So let's make sure we do that. And I'll adjust this a little bit. Something kind of like so. Now, what I would do if this were my model, if I actually had to do this in a real environment, is I would check my spans. I have a 3x3 span here. So it would be nice to have the same spans as I go across. This has got 16 spans. It's possible I don't necessarily need a full 16 spans to get this shape, or the shape exactly the way I want it. So let's go ahead and rebuild the curve. And let's just make a few tests. Let's just keep history, and we'll keep our ends. And that's pretty close with just 6 spans. So we can make adjustments here, maybe increase that. 9 spans is pretty good. I think we'll just go ahead and go with 6. And we can delete out our original. So here's our new curve. Now, as a double check, I would, if I were in this position, go ahead and just snap these ends back onto the curve just to be safe, to make sure that there is some nice consistency there. And we have this surface, which it would be, you don't necessarily have to rebuild this because 6 goes into 3 exactly, but just as a workflow issue, I would probably go ahead and rebuild these, just because I'm so used to rebuilding anyways. So let's open up our rebuilds. Now we're at 3x3. Let's just try 3x6 and apply. And oh, whoops! I have it set to Bezier. I don't want to do that. So let's make sure I undo that. Let's go ahead and set this to uniform. Make sure I check my parameters. That'll be a lot better. And we'll keep our corners in place, 6x3, and it looks like that's going to work out. So now let's finally try out our Birail 3 Plus tool. So let's go to Surfaces, Birail 3 Plus, and notice I can just marquee select over the end of this surface, and Maya automatically knows that that's going to be one of the profiles. We can grab this profile, finally this profile, press Enter, grab the 2 rails, and if you get an error, what's the problem? It's always going to end up being your snapping, so that should be the next thing you check. So let's snap our rails into place for starters, although I doubt that's the problem. And now let's double check snap. In fact, I think I can already see a gap here. Boom, and there we go. So notice that we go from our original surface into this new surface, back to our original surface. Now, because we maintain tangency using project tangent, there's really no reason for us to come in here and adjust tangent continuity for profile 1 or 2, but if for any reason we noticed there was a break in tangency, we could switch that on. We've already seen that on some of the other Birail settings. So this is an excellent tool for doing a wide variety of surface commands. I mean, I just got some basic examples. Another really good example that I like to use is if you want to create like a bat wing or a dragon wing, because you could come in here, for example, and just for, let's say, just for each section of the wing, because I would probably build the skin in different sections, we can start out with the outermost edge of the section, and then the innermost edge of the section. Then let's go ahead and frame up on what we've got. I can grab my EP curve tool, and I can create a point here, and a point here, and create a point here, and here, maybe even here and here if I want to, and then finally here and here. And I can start shaping these to define what I want the wing to look like. Let's start off by grabbing all of these curves, and I'll rebuild them. So let's go to Edit Curves, Rebuild. Let's say 3 spans, and we'll keep the ends in place, though I'll probably go ahead and re-snap those just to be safe. And here on this curve right up here by the corner, we'll just tug this out just a little bit. Maybe on this curve, we'll pull things out a little bit more. Now notice we've kept our original curves, so let me back up one. I'll undo our rebuild. Let's go back to Edit Curves and switch off Keep Original, and we'll try that again. Now we'll pull this out a little bit. Pull these out, just creating a little bit of an outward dome. Here we'll do the same thing. Kind of dome that out a little bit further. Here we'll pull this up as well as a little bit inward. And we'll start to create a little bit of irregularity. So we can maybe take these 2 vertices and kind of tug them in a little bit. And finally this last edge, we can pull inward, kind of enhance that irregularity a little bit. Now again, just if this were my model, I would take just a second and make sure that everybody was re-snapped to the curve, just to be careful. Whoops. Let's get in there and grab him. Curve snap. Curve snap. And now let's grab our Birail tool. Birail 3+. So we can just grab all of our profiles, press Enter, grab our 2 rails, and boom, we get a surface. And the cool thing, of course, is that we can come in here and start grabbing our curves, and any adjustments we need to make to the surface can be done by tweaking those CVs around. So I have a lot of control over what this final shape ends up looking like. So that is really going to wrap things up for the Birail 3+ curve video, Birail 3+ tool video. Thank you very much, and take care.